Was frontier life anything to laugh about? Was the Old West funny? I mean, people died. They got stampeded and trampled. They were shot in the streets and routinely hanged in public. They were tied up and dragged through the mud and the dust and left for dead in the desert. Sometimes they were crushed or punched, shot at, or, railroaded, blown up. Golly. People got beat up and plain flat knocked out. They were sometimes lit on fire and even spat on. Actually, some of that sounds pretty hilarious. It's Horses on Film. Howdy, y'all. Welcome to episode 5 of Horses on Film. I'm your host, Cameron Chapman, and this is the podcast dedicated to determining the top 100 Westerns of all time. And we're using as our guide the IndieWire list they published in 2024 of their top 100 episodes or Westerns of all time. And from there, we're going to reorganize it. We're going to add, subtract, and kind of come up with a list we can be proud of. And yeah, so thank you for joining us on our little journey through the American West here. Joining us is one of my co-hosts tonight, Dave Chapman, and filling in for Scott is writer, comedian Jeff Da Silva. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got big shoes to fill here with Scott. He's the one thing that keeps us going overtime each time.
Oh yeah,
we'll just call him out on that right up
right
front.
Away. Right. Actually, he might pop in later, so we can give it to him right to his face. But thanks for joining. Last episode we covered Rio Bravo, and one of the things that came up in it was we were talking about diss track filmmaking, because Rio Bravo was made kind of as a response to High Noon, because the filmmakers hated High Noon so much, so they made Rio Bravo. I looked for other examples of this, and the only one I could find was Raging Bull apparently was a diss track to Rocky, because Rocky was so feel good and they wanted kind of a feel bad boxing movie.
I assume that The Sandlot was probably a diss track to Mighty Ducks. If that was maybe that, it depends on when the chronological order.
Yeah, I don't know.
Came out.
Yeah, I'm sure Mighty Ducks came before The Sandlot. I think feels so. Like it feels older for sure.
Yeah,
but yeah. Oh, The Sandlot's a classic one. If we ever do top 100 baseball movies, The Sandlot is.
Are there 100 baseball movies?
Yes, there are.
Yeah, there's a
My.
lot.
Baseball is very cinematic, and they've gone to the well. They've gone to the diamond a lot on. And
if you film it, they will come.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Rio Bravo ended up. It's now on our list, sitting in the 3rd slot out of 4. It had a rating of 14 out of 20, which gives it an average of 3.5. So I still think it's gonna, end up near the middle to back of this list, which kind of surprises me because it is, pretty popular movie. But
I was expecting it to be, especially because Melanie gave it 5 stars, so I was kind of expecting it to be higher, but we kind of got progressively lower.
It was interesting. We went 5, 4, 3, 2, and ended up at a pretty average rating. But this one today is a comedy, and Jeff, you're a comedian. You probably watch a lot of comedies. Do you have a favorite? Like, it's a spoof of the Western genre. Do you have a favorite spoof movie?
You know, I was talking with a friend this week that like I watched a lot of movies, but I haven't watched a lot of classic movies. But I've watched movies like Wet Hot American Summer like 800 times.
Yeah.
So like a lot, like I've seen Pootie Tang probably like at least 300 times or something like. but so I mean, I think like Wet Hot was big. I watched the new Naked Gun this past week,
Yeah.
unknowingly that we'd be talking about movie spoofs, and
Yeah.
I think like the original Naked Gun probably was something in my comedic DNA from when I was young, and so that's probably my top one.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's I like Airplane. Obviously, Airplane is great. Controversially, I like Airplane 2. I think written by Canadian Ken Finkelman. Famously, the guys that made Airplane 1 have never seen Airplane 2 and refuse to exist or acknowledge that it exists. But it's very funny, and it's got William Shatner, and the over macho grande scene in the courtroom, maybe the best comedy writing I've ever heard. It's so good. And then I'm a Christopher Guest guy, so you know, Waiting for Guffman is a movie. Yeah, Spinal Tap. I can quote Waiting for Guffman start to finish, and definitely Best in Show and A Mighty Wind, and that sort of those ones hit me right in the funny bone. How about you, Dave?
Mel Brooks can do no wrong in my eyes, with the exception of The History of the World Part 2, that which wasn't really him. It was his concept. The TV series was kind of but no, Spaceballs is probably one of my favorite movies of all time. So
That's awesome.
I'm on that. So excited for Spaceballs 2. The switch for more money.
Exactly. I have a friend named Mark Kogan, who will probably be a guest on here at some point. When he saw Star Wars, he's like, "Oh, they finally made a serious Spaceballs."
Oh no!
He had seen Spaceballs first, and had no clue it was a Star Wars reference. But it's one of those movies I kind of thought, "Oh, I bet it doesn't hold up," but it still kind of holds up. It's still pretty great.
Yeah.
And
I think so much.
What's that?
Well, I was gonna say that so much of my knowledge of movies are probably due to me seeing the spoof before seeing the especially like later things, because once I had kids I was not I just was missing a lot of things, so I'll get like Family Guy reference to something, or the Simpsons reference, or like whatever the Scary Movie reference was to the actual Scary Movie that they were spoofing over the actual movie.
Oh, I'd say 90% of my knowledge of life on Earth comes from a Simpsons reference. You know, like the fact that I know who the, Surgeon General was in the U.S. in the 1980s because of the B Sharps episode of The Simpsons. Like these random things that we learn, and my parents scratch their head and say, "How do you know that?" And every time it's The Simpsons. Like, it's amazing how a reference can lead you down that hole of,
trivia
discovery.
Line
and even like a spoof like Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. I just watched because I watch everything with Steve Martin, and then I realized, oh, there's all these like film noirs and all these films that they're referencing, and it's the exact same thing where you something, it has to lead you into it. And I wonder if Blazing Saddles led a lot of people into westerns.
I'd say it's probable.
It was wildly popular, and was nominated for awards and stuff. And very often you don't see comedies in those Oscars nowadays. Even ones like The Hangover and things like that made such a big impact, they're usually left out of award conversations.
Yeah, It's funny, like watching this back, because so my dad used to play all the old Mel Brooks films, and even like we watched The Jerk a lot. Like speaking of
Mm.
Steve Martin, and Blazing Saddles was something that I probably watched hundreds of times as a kid. But as a kid, I didn't really think about anything other than the fart, the bean scene kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
going back and watching it, I'm like, oh, I think a lot of this movie is probably created the DNA of for which how I do comedy or however I approach writing and that sort of thing. And it was always in there, and it all stems back to probably this and The Jerk,
Yeah.
and I had no idea. It was like a nice rewatch after so many years because I was like, oh I can't even imagine my dad get like thinking about satire in that way or whatever it is. It was just like back in the day, it was just like, oh, it's just a silly thing that you put on. And now it has so many layers that I was
Yeah.
really blown away rewatching it. So
That's awesome. Well, on that, I think we should start our feature presentation.
Yeah.
Get
So
into cue
put
the
this thing up,
yeah.
and we'll scroll down on my thing here and turn on some mood music. A town where everybody seems to be named Johnson stands in the way of the railroad. In order to grab their land, robber baron Headley Lamar sends his henchmen to make life in the town unbearable. After the sheriff is killed, the town demands a new sheriff from the governor. So Headley convinces him to send the town the first black sheriff in the West.
Perfect. That's the synopsis according to letterbox.com. And so Blazing Saddles, 1974.
I realized I put the wrong art up. Just for the record, there's the
Oh.
proper art.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Because it's such good. You do such good posters. And
Yeah,
the layers
I like
of the
that they
postering
all
is great.
stack there. Yeah. Yes, of course, we said directed by Mel Brooks, who did the producers, and at this point he had done Young Frankenstein came out the same year as this. That's hard to imagine that he put two movies out that same year that are both pretty iconic.
Mm-hmm.
And the outline was originally written by Andrew Bergman. It was a screenplay credit, though, to Bergman, Mel Brooks, Norman Steinberg, Alan Euger, and Richard Pryor. It was kind of a rare thing where Mel Brooks put together a team and actually wrote in like a writer's room. It stars Cleavon Little, Gene Wilder, Slim Pickens, Harvey Korman, Madeline Kahn, Mel Brooks, and Mel Brooks in a few roles. The idea was loosely based on a novel called The Yellowback Radio Broke Down by Ishmael Reed. It's kind of a satirical take on the old classic Western novels about a black sheriff being appointed to a town, at the time. It was shot March through May 1973 at Warner Brothers Studio in Burbank, and then out in the Vasquez Rocks in California. It was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. Best Supporting Actress, Madeline Kahn. Best Editing, John C. Howard, who did Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and Danford B. Green, who did MASH. And Best Song, Blazing Saddles, written by Mel Brooks. And I guess he didn't tell the singer that the movie was a comedy. He just let him play it straight, which I think usually that's the way to go. Play it straight and it'll be hilarious, right? Godfather Part 2 won 6 Oscars that night. So I don't think they had much of a chance winning a lot of Oscars, but they were definitely in the conversation. In 2016, Blazing Saddles was deemed culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress and selected for preservation in the National Film Registry, which I think is pretty impressive for a comedy that's this, came so close to never being released, essentially.
And would never, we'll come back to it, I'm sure, but would never be released today.
Yeah, I mean, that's the joke. That's what everyone says. You can never make this movie nowadays. I don't know if that's true. I mean, South Park certainly gets away with a certain amount of,
Seth
satire.
MacFarlane, I think, could get away with something close to this, or the South Park guys. Like there is definitely some great satirists out there right now, but this goes a level past. It's gone past politically correct, so far past it that it's like, ooh, that's rough. Ooh, like it is weird. But you have to watch it in. This was 1975. While a lot of stuff was, not good then, that was also the point.
Right. And I think, like he had there's a, famous story that's probably not true, where he had a sign in the writer's room that said, please don't make a polite script, or don't write a polite script. I don't think that was actually true, but I think, having Richard Pryor in the room, and then later having Cleavon Little kind of give it that push, that thumbs up, I think the writers thought they kind of had a green light to really push the envelope, and they certainly did. And it's extremely funny. Jeff, you said you watched a lot as a kid. Do you think it holds up? It's still funny?
Yeah, I think it holds up. It's funny watching it the same week that I watched the new Naked Gun, because there's a few jokes in the new Naked Gun that they're using words that you typically won't hear in like a major theatrical comedy release, but they get away with it because the joke is like pushing up, or like it's like, and I think that's why Blazing Saddles really works, is because they're punching up the whole time.
Yeah,
and so it feels like it was, for me, it was interesting because like I think we've been so conditioned to be scared of saying things in the name of satire because of how they might perceive or how they might spiral out of control. But for that movie to be as relevant to today as it was to that era, as it was to speaking to the era that it was spoofing on, I just think it was really brilliant. So I personally think it held up. It certainly was shocking right out the gate, like right on the beginning railroad scene, just being like, oh, well, I had totally forgotten about all of that. Like my brain had all of the racial satire and all of that stuff was missed by a young version of me, but I think it's all there. I'm trying to think like something that's recently done that where they push it. I mean, the most recent episode of SNL toyed with the idea. There was a new cast member on there, Cam Patterson, and they were toying with the idea of him saying the N-word. And Che and Jost, every year when they trade jokes, they really push kind of they really push what they can kind of say, under the premise of like the audience is aware that they're in on the joke type of thing. And I think
they even made reference to the early days where SNL, when that word was used a few times.
When by Richard Pryor or by Chevy Chase. And so I think that I feel someone will get away with it, but you need the right team and you need the punching up.
The only time I felt that they weren't punching up, and they punch down a little, was when they break out of the movie and end up on the set of that musical. It does get a little bit maybe dicey, homophobic, but then again, Mel Brooks is so clever, and he's a wise comedian. Just that little moment where the cowboy and the dancer are fighting, and they go in behind the stairs and they come out the other side, and it's like, oh, where'd you park? And they're going off together. They've made up, they're going on a date together, and it sort of subverts the whole punching down thing, even for a second.
Even sorry.
No worries.
Even I was gonna say, like, Gene Wilder, and who's the main actor who plays the sheriff?
Cleavon Little.
They are so charming.
They're the best.
And because they're so innocently friendly with each other, that I think that roots them as like this force for good over the course of the whole movie, and they're kind of like they break the fourth wall all the time, so they're kind of observing the movie as it's happening. I think that releases the tension for the audience a little bit. Comedically, I think that's how Mel Brooks like allows you to slip those ideas in, because he gives that release of tension every now and then. Because if you have it just straight up, I'm trying to think, like, I haven't seen, speaking of movies I should see, and you guys will probably review it at some point, I haven't seen Django Unchained. But my assumption is that there is no winking, even though the satire is still there. So it creates a different type of tension, and there's different types of permissions that you might be able to get away with, or maybe just a different type of genre of film. So
I was definitely going to mention Django as being, maybe that's what satire looks like now, or like when that came out. It's maybe 10 years old now, but that level of satire, it's a little bit more serious, a little bit more violent, a little bit takes itself a little bit more on the nose, but it's kind of in that same spirit. I wonder if Blazing Saddles allows a movie like Django Unchained to even exist.
I don't remember Django Unchained being all that satirical, but maybe it was just the headspace I was in when I watched it. And I'm now more interested to rewatch that when we eventually get around to it.
Yeah, now it's not on the list of the top 100 movies.
Oh, maybe.
It does shock me, but it's one in one of our segments where we bring in things from off the list. It's definitely one I would think that should be considered. The other Tarantino Western, Hateful Eight, also not on the list. I think I'm not a giant Tarantino fan. I think that he's made some really great movies. Yeah. Those two, like, I love Jackie Brown. I think Jackie Brown is amazing. But I think those two not being considered, I'm sure they were considered, but not being added to the list is kind of surprising.
Yeah, a little bit.
Considering I think some of the things on the list are on the list because Tarantino has championed them so much. Some of the more violent spaghetti westerns and a few of those other ones. I know he's put them on his lists of top westerns, and now they're on this list. So I'm surprised to not see more of him in here. But you said the leads like Gene Wilder and Cleavon Little. That was my first takeaway from this movie, that that charming's the right word. They're so charming and calm and cool, and even when they leave the movie and come back to the movie and they are eating popcorn, and anytime they have to make a big speech, there's just something so earnest and special about them that you're right. It sort of gives us permission to go on this ride, regardless of what the insane bad guys are doing. And the bad guys are cartoony bad. And then they give them all these horrible things to say and do. And it again gives you permission to laugh at them for being so ridiculous.
I mean, I think coming back to it and how it influenced me, I oftentimes, at least in my stand-up, and certainly as I've gotten older, try to infuse that irony or that ironical distance about making comments on race a lot. Like I certainly talk about it now a bit more than I used to when I was younger. But I think it's like one of those things where when I think Mel Brooks, if you watch the movie and you think he goes after every group kind of like equally. And I think that's one way of getting permissions of doing things. And then I think that the silliness with even, like, say, the first racist out of the gate, like that, the guys who are yelling at the fellows on the railroad, is so cartoonish that I think that everyone is already in on that. It's ridiculous. It's like absurdism gives you the permission to then go for the jugular in terms of making those kind of race-based jokes. So
it's amazing that we're not living in a more post-racial world, because we've had so many things in the last 50 years that have showed us how ridiculous it all is. and yet we still have to fight these fights over and over again. It sounds out of control, but it's weird. And that obviously Gene and Cleavon weren't the original choice for this. It was going to be Richard Pryor in the lead, and they I think they thought he was uninsurable, I think was the word the studio used. He had some drug convictions and things like that. And Gene Wilder's role was a guy named Gig Young, and he actually day one of shooting collapsed. He was suffering from alcohol withdrawal and collapsed. And they brought in Gene Wilder on like a phone call, please come in and save this movie kind of thing. And he didn't even question it. He just came in, walked right into that role. And I mean, he's brilliant in it. He's so good.
He really is.
Yeah.
I think people forget, like when you think Gene Wilder, you picture the wild part of his name. You picture him as Willy Wonka, where he's completely lunatic, bordering on dark and creepy, and almost evil. You think about Young Frankenstein, and you think about the worst of, and I'll use giant air quotes in that, worst of Blazing Saddles. You don't think about, and what you said earlier is correct, the charm that he has. He just oozes this calm that it surprises me every time I see it, because I'm just my brain does not connect him with that smoothness, and it should, because he really is amazing in everything he does.
And then there's other actors peppered in there that kind of have Western roots, like Slim Pickens and some of these guys that just kind of fit in so well. And I think Harvey Korman is great in this too. Of course. He just, I mean, maybe not as good as in the Star Wars Holiday Special, but he's he just, these guys are coming off like the Carol Burnett show and stuff, where they're just on, and some of those takes of Harvey Korman are long, uncut takes, and he's layering in all these jokes and making sure to correct people on the pronunciation of his name and everything all the way through this whole thing. I just think they got a great cast, like top to bottom. There's lots of good little Western references with like Randolph Scott, the little Randolph Scott moment, and the we don't need no stinking badges from Treasures of Sierra Madre, and countless kind of stereotypes and moments, and they play them so well. Also, it was nominated for editing, and I really did think the editing was very special. Like those moments where Gene Wilder pulls his gun but doesn't, or where he steals the chess piece, because he's got the fastest hands. It's edited so well, and I think so much of humor is in the cuts sometimes.
I think also what's interesting in like hearing the background that Mel Brooks set up kind of a writer's room is that the fade-ins, it's different from like movies you see nowadays narratively where everything connects, and it felt like almost like a series of sketches kind of put together. It still weave together beautifully and all of that stuff, but that aspect of like each scene is kind of a set piece, and then they do their thing within that scene, and then it fades out to the next bit kind of thing was almost in the tradition of Carol Burnett and all of those things.
Absolutely.
Sure, it was of its time, but
it's Bugs Bunny. And I mean, they straight up use the Looney Tunes theme, but even before that, you can see the Bugs Bunny in this. The sheriff is just so constantly bringing up these things that you would only see on Looney Tunes.
And there is a great article about how black coded Bugs Bunny was.
True.
And how, like even that calm under pressure coolness that Cleavon brings to that role. And there really is like a Bugs Bunny up against these awful, people, and just the way he just slides right through it, and they build the fake town, like the very Looney Tunes level humor.
That I think that's something too that whenever I'm writing something or working on something, I always feel like if it could be communicated in like a Simpsons style sight gag or a cartoonish way, that always feels like a win, especially if you're doing something live action and you can you feel it as a cartoon, like how you can imagine how it would be as a cartoon. And I think this had all of those moments. There was even so many small sight gags, like the last names of the council people in the town was all Johnson.
Everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, which is it was so great.
Yeah.
And I told my wife, I was like, "There's that joke there, right there." They're talking about how homogenous this group is, and all of that stuff. It was so layered throughout it. Even it was so funny. One of my big laughs watching it back was when the old lady insults Cleavon and then has to come back to him to get him some help. And so the door opens and she's the window opens and she's just waiting there. And I don't know, it was awesome. It was just a real good.
And then still got in the shot of like, oh, but don't mention that we talked. You know, we can't be friends. Yeah, too good. The joke that my dad pulled from this and said 20 million times growing up was the break's over. You know, after they pull themselves out of the quicksand. And again, like I Googled where on earth is quicksand, because now, you know, I grew up terrified of quicksand.
Right.
And it hasn't happened to me yet, but I remember vividly having like nightmares about quicksand, which may have come from watching this as a child. But yeah, anytime we go through some kind of struggle, if we're building a deck or whatever, my dad will say, okay, break's over, let's get back to this. And yeah, there's so many of these jokes that just like are still around and still in the lexicon, you know, 50 whatever years later.
Even there was an aspect of, like, I'm a big Nathan Fielder watcher, and there's an aspect of them just when they just were like, oh, we're gonna, the absurdity of creating another version of the town to distract the bad guys, and just being like, and then they're like, well, obviously we're gonna need versions of us, and they just all of that also translates to what people are doing now, like where you're just like, the idea is so absurd, but then they pull it off, and them pulling it off is what gives you the joy of the comedy. It's like, oh, well, that's great that they just kind of made another town all within a night.
In maybe a few hours they just completely recreated the whole town. Too good. Yeah. And you know, and then you know, they eventually did make a pilot of this to go on a TV series. It was called Black Bart, and it didn't go anywhere, but it maintained the copyright, which was kind of important. I did watch that leading up to this, and I was curious. I was like, oh, is this humor, is this kind of style of humor going to translate to TV when they can't be as, you know, rude, crude, and unattractive? And I was surprised to see that they still kind of said the words. Like, I think they thought it was really going to air on TV with those words in it. And they did add a laugh track, though. That was the one thing that was sort of took away from it. And it's certainly not as good as the movie. It doesn't have that level of satire, but I was surprised that it didn't pull, you know, as many punches. And I think there was only really one joke that Mel cut out. He was kind of up against not the censors so much as the studio with some of these rude jokes, and they really only pulled the one out, and it was, you know, Madeline Kahn kind of sex scene. They just pulled one line. So he really kind of got away with, he got everything in there that he wanted in there. And I think it kind of shows. It's sort of a, you know, a comedic vision.
He can do no wrong. And the studios and the studios know that.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
And he made money. Now, does it surprise you to know that this was the first American film that featured flatulence?
Yeah, that actually does surprise me. I'm sure the theatrical audience must have lost it then. Maybe that's why that was so relevant to me.
Yeah.
And that's like, you got to see this movie. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, and it really did kind of. Even the first few preview audiences, they weren't sure if they were allowed to laugh. until the bean scene. And once the cowboys started farting away, they started laughing so hard that they had to raise the volume of the movie in that scene, because he was worried people would be laughing too hard and they would cover all his favorite sounds. And then when you think about it now, very few even children's movies, even all the Pixar movies that our kids drag us to, or I guess we like the Pixar movies, but the Pixar knockoffs that our kids drag us to, they all have a fart joke in there. And did you guys know there is an animated remake of Blazing Saddles?
No,
I did not. No, this is what I love about this show: learning, education.
So there is a movie, and it's called Paws of Fury: The Legend of Hank. Stars Michael Cera, Sam Jackson, Mel Brooks. It's got a great cast. It's definitely not DreamWorks or Pixar, but the animation's beautiful. I watched it this week. It's very good. It's surprisingly very good. And I've sat through some bad, like I sat through Secret Life of Pets. I sat through Finding Dory. I really enjoyed this. Ricky Gervais is in it, and it's essentially a town of cats that gets sent. The cat town is in the way of the cat that wants to make the most perfect palace ever. It's a samurai take, which happens a lot in these westerns, as we've discovered. That there's a samurai Unforgiven. There's Western versions of old samurai movies. So it was called Blazing Samurai originally, and the song is Blazing Samurai in the opening. But yeah, it's this town of cats, and they get sent a new sheriff who's a dog, and it's no dogs allowed in the town. But it's amazing how many direct moments, that looking through the spyglass and saying it's a dog as they hit the gong, and there's a lot of moments that are like straight from Blazing Saddles, and then you're watching it in this kids movie with animated cats. It's wild.
Do they ask where the golden retrievers are at?
Yeah, no. Although that, I think, as far as classic Blazing Saddles jokes, where are the white women at? I don't know if there's a funnier line in the movie.
No, there really isn't. And it's even funnier when you watch actually watch the movie and have the context of he's saying that to the KKK.
Right, exactly.
Because everybody knows that line, but I don't think everybody knows that context.
Right. Yeah. And that's a great run that Corman goes on, where he's saying, send me the misfits and the losers and the all the way through. And in the animated one, they end on studio executives. Send us the studio executives. So so if you're looking for something to show your kids, if you want to get that window into Blazing Saddles for your kids, just show them Paws of Fury: The Legend of Hank, starring Michael Cera.
Paws of Fury.
It's
amazing. Reminds me a little bit of they did do a Spaceballs animated show too.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, and I don't remember it being very good.
No. I know it exists. I don't remember it existing.
Right.
Like I know it was there. I've heard the theme song. I mean, the theme song was of its time in and of itself, but I don't remember the animated series of that at all.
Yeah, I just remember early Comedy Network when we first got the Comedy Network, and it was like Kids in the Hall reruns and the Spaceballs cartoon.
Spaceballs cartoon. Yeah. I was born in '83, and so Blazing Saddles would have been out for a while when my dad, by the time I could have remembered watching the movie, and assuming my dad showed it to me early because we were watching Rambo and whatever at age 3, that movie was obviously persisting. I guess back then, if you had one VHS of something, you would watch it over and over again, and
Absolutely.
and my dad probably had it, and then we would just watch it. But there was no. I probably watched it when I was 4 years old, and I was thinking yesterday because we had put it on, and then some of my kids were peeling in and out and stuff like that. I was like, I don't know. I don't know when I intro them to this. I showed them Dumb and Dumber a couple weeks ago, and they like kind of got it. There were some jokes where, and this is coming from a household where we joke a lot about a lot of things. Like we have a very high tolerance for joking about anything. And
Your kids are very well featured in your comedy. Absolutely.
Yeah. And they listen to everything we talk about. They watch a lot of. I'll have stand up on all the time. Lots of things going on in the background. But I was like, I don't know if they'll watch the. We were like, I think they could watch it. We'd have to give them a lot of context for some of the words and be like,
Right.
okay, this is satire, or the like. Yeah,
I did
this at school.
Yeah,
don't say that.
I was kind of forced. I kind of forced myself to do a little research into kind of, how casual that word was thrown around at the time. And like I said, in 1975, they did the pilot and they had those words in there, which really shocked me. I did find that 10 years prior, in 1964, in the UK, a politician used that word in his campaign slogan, essentially saying, if you want these people in England, then vote for the other party, essentially saying he's going to not have them in England. And he won the election, which is like crazy. But sorry, Jeff, do you have to pop out for a second?
Yeah, or I might have about 5 minutes left before she loses it.
Okay.
I hear her screaming.
Okay, no worries. Why don't we go to our horses on film count, which is kind of our next quick thing. So horses on film, it's basically no horses, some horses, lots of horses, all the horses, meaning you've lost count of how many horses are in this movie. I'll start. I think it's all the horses. That the scene where the natives are circling the wagon train in the flashback. There's so many horses on screen you can't count them.
I'm going with all the horses as well, because I think every outdoor scene has a horse.
Yes, including one that can take a punch.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
And I'm going with all the horses as well. Yeah, I was thinking about that punching the horses scene, and I was like, can they get away with that? Because the horse looked really real. Like it looked like, I don't know what the trivia is on that, but I was like, that looked like they punched a real horse. And
that was a real horse and a very, very good stunt rider who did a very good job of pulling his head as he fell. So it's kind of to make it look. But I believe that I don't know if they did more than one take, but I think on that take he did connect with the horse. Obviously, no horses were injured, and even in that scene where they first attack the town, there's a pretty good horse wipeout where the horse slips on the boardwalk into the puddle and kind of gets up and goes. But yeah, whenever I see that in movies where a horse tumbles over, or I was watching a film that was shot here, Last of the Dogmen, and the horse does a full somersault over the rider, and horses are not light like that. It was a crazy stunt, and I don't know, sometimes less horses on film is better. But yeah, that was pretty incredible. And then what about ratings? What do you think out of 5? What do we think we're rating this guy?
I want to hear Jeff's first.
Okay, I'm gonna say 5, but let me preface this. I watch almost exclusively comedies. I also am intricately aware of race relations with regards to comedy, and I think about this stuff all the time. I think that there is a real there's a real show of power and strength in the idea of using humor to let people's defenses down in order to disseminate ideas to them about
Yeah.
how people act, how people think, and try and convince people in that way. And so I think, like, from the perspective of a film that used humor in order to communicate something to change people's minds or educate people, I think that this does it so brilliantly. And then watching it back as an adult, knowing everything that I've kind of pursued and done over my life has some sort of semblance and tie to that particular film. I think it was magical for me watching it back. I don't know how much you could get away with nowadays and all of that stuff, but I think it's in everyone. And Mel Brooks I think he was on Curb one of the last few seasons, or he was on something. He's still so relevant and so funny and so able. The ideas still translate now, which is why the new Spaceballs will be great. And
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and I even the little trailer intro that he did for the Spaceballs trailer, like, he's still got it. He's so
Oh yeah.
funny to the core. I had this sitting at 2.5 stars on my letterbox, but I hadn't rewatched it since I was a kid, and I've watched it a few times this week leading up to it. I'm definitely up to at least 3 stars. I could go higher if I was ranking this on a list of comedy movies. I think I would have it much higher as a comedy. As a Western, I think it does such a great job skewering the politics of the time in the motif of Westerns. I don't think it's as far as top 100 Westerns go, I don't think it's a top 50 Western, but I really do admire, love, laugh. So I think I'm going to stick at 3 stars for this one.
Okay. I don't know that the comedy, like I said, if you could get away with that now, and that's the only thing keeping me from giving it 5 stars. I'm not going to give it 5 stars because I'm just not sure that it holds up quite there. And it holds up brilliantly. It's wonderful. You know, it's important. So I gave it 4.5.
Wow.
And if you think about it objectively, there is not pick a thing that makes a movie a Western. Pick one. It's in there. There's not a single thing that makes it a Western that's not in there.
Including a whole dance number.
Yeah. They got a dance number. They have a song break. We had a song break in the not in Tall T, in
Rio Bravo.
In Rio Bravo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say this is a better song than that was.
It was an Oscar nominated song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, you had your natives coming out, and I loved that he was Jewish.
He was Yiddish. Yeah, speaking Yiddish.
They didn't make fun of, again, it's that punching up. They didn't do the Hollywood make fun of the Hollywood Indian. They did it by making him Yiddish.
There's a great story. One of the writers, one of their friends, was working out in Idaho when the movie came out. He was working on a show in Idaho, and so he snuck to a theater and saw the movie. And when Mel Brooks was speaking Yiddish in his whole headdress, the guy behind him leaned over to his wife and said, "He's speaking Sioux." These people have never been to New York. They've never, very sweet and innocent.
Yeah.
All right. And then obviously we're talking like list worthy, keep it. It's I think going to end up on this list. I've said before, I don't think you make a list of top 100 Westerns without Blazing Saddles on it. It just feels like it needs to be there. But what films, other comedies of the genre could slot in there? I had a few in my little intro there. I'll start at first. I think Three Amigos is absolutely hilarious and a great Western. and akin to Seven Samurai and A Bug's Life and all these things that kind of tell that same story over and over. But I love Three Amigos.
Agreed. I love it. There comes a point where it kind of loses what it was trying to be a couple of times throughout the movie. I think that's one of the things that kept it off the list, like the singing bush bit.
Sure.
Like it slid into the slapstick that didn't fit the rest of the movie.
Right.
I think that is probably one of the the few scenes in there that's not great enough that kept it off of this list to begin with.
I could see that. Now, it's one of the first ones, again, talking about showing the kids. It's one of the first movies I showed my kids, and we go back to it all the time. They love it.
I'm trying to think, like American Tail, Five Goes West, or like maybe Back to the Future 3. Was Back to the Future 3 probably, if I'm trying to think of like a comedy that had a Western aspect to it?
Yeah. I do worry that on its own, Back to the Future 3 doesn't hold up as a full movie.
Yeah.
but there's so, I mean, I put some clips in the intro that it's such a good Western, and it has that little bit of a sci-fi twist and a fun movie. And again, it's got all those, little Western things that you could never say it's not a Western. You could almost say it's not a time travel movie because
it's not Back to the Future 2.
No, exactly.
That's what it's not.
Yeah.
But Five Goes West for sure is a great animated movie. It's got some humor. There's not one animated movie on this list, and Rango, I think, is another one that could easily be on this list. Spirit of the Cimarron is a great animated movie, not a comedy necessarily, but great kids / animated movie that I think could be on this list. There's a movie called Rustler's Rhapsody that I've never seen. It's directed by the guy who did Police Academy, and it's essentially Police Academy in the Old West.
Oh wow!
And I can't find it. I'm looking for it. I'd love to watch it. I think that again, I don't know if it cracks the top 100, but if we're talking about Western comedies and how few of those there are, Rustler's Rhapsody, I think it's 1985.
Oh, it's got to be good.
Yeah,
I'm just based on the time frame and the concept. It's like that's got to be something.
Exactly. And I think it does more of skewering like the old singing cowboys, like the old Gene Autry, Roy Rogers kind of era. But again, I haven't seen it. I'd love to see that one. The only other one I thought of, obviously, like A Million Ways to Die in the West is not a great movie. There's some jokes. No. Ridiculous Six we talked about in the first episode. It's goofy, but it doesn't really have anything to say, where Blazing Saddles has a clear point of view. One I worked on, again, I'm gonna, the drinking game of me talking about movies I worked on, Shanghai Noon. I think Shanghai Noon is a great Western, and Jackie Chan's great, Owen Wilson's great, the story's great, the action's great. The director had come off some of the biggest commercials and music videos prior to that. I think there's some great direction in there. I think definitely Shanghai Noon I would fight, mostly because I worked on it, but also because I think it is a great time at the movies. And have you guys seen Shanghai Noon?
I have.
It's been a while. It's been a while, but I've seen it. Yeah,
it would be worth a rewatch when you get to it.
That might be one to
bring me on when I'm back in my podcast studio.
Oh, I'd love to have you back, and definitely for a Shanghai Noon episode.
Yeah.
Definitely. There was a scene we did where we had a bunch of, like, I think we had close to 200 natives on horseback up on a hill, but the action was down in the trees where Jackie was working with his stunt crew, and they were the natives attacking him, and he was protecting this little boy that he kind of happened upon. And I luckily was not sent up on the hill. I was sent down on set to be right there. And I got to be right there as Jackie was choreographing, grabbing the tree and hitting the guy and throwing the hatchet and the native guy just catches it and keeps coming at him, and all these things that they worked out right on set, and just using what they needed. And if a tree wasn't there, our Amazing Greens team would just come in and wonk a tree down and they could use it. And it was one of those days on set of the 26 years I've been working, where I think about it all the time. and just seeing that process, because I've never really done a lot of action movies, or we don't do a lot of big choreographed fights other than the occasional saloon brawl when you are doing a Western. To see someone coordinate a fight like that but make it funny, I think is there's a kind of a genuine magic to that, and I'm gonna fight for that movie on this list too.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
I think we should. I think that can be one of our eventual off list.
Yeah, I hope so. And we're definitely getting you back for that one, Jeff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's plug where we can find you. How about let's start with you, Jeff. What's going on in your world? Where can we find you?
I'm going to be on a show at the Laugh Shop October 22nd. It's a taping for one of my friends is trying to put together a proof of concept for a talk show. And then I'm just popping up at different mics around the city right now because I'm trying to basically finish my hour of stand-up that I'm eventually wanting to film. And then other than that, follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Jeff De Silva, and that you can be privy to all of my various exploits as I go through them. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of me or see me. I'll be around town.
Absolutely. Calgary's most prolific stand-up comedian, in my opinion.
Yeah.
always working, always hilarious. Thank you so much for being here. And Dave, where can we find you? What's going on in your world?
Oh, sure thing. I'm not sure where I'll be once this one actually airs, because we're recording this a little bit in advance. But most Sundays you can find me on Spill the Geek Tea at Spill the Geek T1. Tuesdays on The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. The first Thursday of every month, along with Cameron and Scott and a few of our other friends, youtube.com/@happinesspatrolshow. And then as I get around to doing things on my own channel, the Rat Hole DOTCA, that's the rathole.ca, but YouTube doesn't like URLs in their URLs. And I do all sorts of video games lately, which is weird for me. A lot of board games, miniature painting show, all that sort of stuff. And of course, you can find me here on Horses on Film.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where you can find me. If I'm not on Horses on Film, I'm probably talking about it. I apologize to everyone in my life because that's sort of where my head is right now. So you can find me on letterboxd.com, Cameron Chapman. It's a lot of Star Wars reviews. It's a lot of Westerns. Letterboxd.com, Horses on Film is where you can follow our rankings from this show. The links will be there to go off to youtube.com/@horsesonfilm, where you're probably watching this now. And hopefully everyone's enjoying it. And we're 5 episodes in, and I'm so thrilled that we got you out here, Jeff. Especially this early on, it's amazing. That means we can have you back again and again and again as we go through more of these. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, it was awesome. I realize now also I have a lot of uncles, and when I grew up, I had just all of my mom's brothers constantly putting on Bonanza and all of these Westerns we would watch over and over again. And so I think even though I'd never thought of myself as someone who had any knowledge of the genre, I think it's just all there and sitting in my brain, and it just probably needs to be reawoken by whatever movie that you guys happen to watch. So yeah, have me over whenever. It was a pleasure. It's awesome.
That's great. Well, uncle approved then. Even if we get half of your uncles watching this, that's big. That's bigger numbers than I'm hoping for. So
it's huge.
Yeah, that'd be massive for us. All right. Well, thank you everyone again. And last person I want to thank is the Brett Alec Bailey composed our theme. Thank you so much. You may see him on an upcoming episode too, so that's very exciting. And thank you again, all. This has been Horses on Film, and I love a happy ending.